There's something really off about West Coast Asian American culture. There's just something just wrong, or it feels weird about it, where it just doesn't feel like a genuine culture that can truly uplift people in a way that I've seen um, more intellectual cultures on the East Coast perform. And my whole problem with Asian American culture is essentially the very pragmatic, anti-intellectual nature of it. Um, there's just this overall sense that being curious about things, just talking about, you know, just talking about concepts or just arguing and debating about certain topics is simply deemed as uncool or a waste of time or cringe um, in the context of West Coast Asian Americans. Because I've talked to a few of them, and there's just, I don't know, it's like there's something in their face when you look at them where you can tell that their face has never really like been in like hard focus, where they're trying to think about something and trying to like really figure out the main point of it. They don't have this like serious look to them. They sort of just have like this blank stare to them, like this. And the way they talk, it's like super energetic and super fun and jokey, where it feels like the only thing the only thing they're looking for is really just fun and enjoyability. And if you don't meet that, if you're not able to just bring up everyone's spirits and just be a party animal or something like that, it's you're just a bore to them. And I I've gotten this feeling like in a lot of places in the South Bay, and I think it's been slowly wearing on me because with this anti-intellectualism, you really start to feel afraid to simply just speak your mind, or just, calm down a little bit and just be chill and just talk about things and just discuss things. You always feel this pressure that you have to be entertaining, that you have to, hype up the gang. And if you're not hyping people up, then you're sort of really low energy and you're messing with the vibes. And I don't know, it's really gotten to me. And I see this sort of like blank stare, this sort of like super dopamine, like over dopamine state from a lot of Asian Americans in the Bay, where it's either they're on their phone and they're just like completely out of it, or when they're like talking super fast. They're talking at like a really high pitch. They're like, oh my god, like, it's like, holy shit, like, I can't keep up. Like, I'm like, calm down, like, and it gets you into this state where you just feel like overly anxious all the time, where you have to be at 110% all the time, or else you're a lame ass person, a depressed person. And the people even dress that way. They dress super casual. They dress like they basically dress like they don't care. They don't care about anything. And that sort of apathy or indifference, I think it really kills the soul. I think despite Asians like talking about introversion or self-awareness, self-reflectiveness, they have this tendency to be so like results oriented, results driven, that if you're not giving them some new experience or some new, party or new rave or new event or like where the HUD's at, like all that stuff. If you're not doing any of those things, they're like, "Oh, I'm so bored. Like, what are you doing for me?" If you're not like improving their status. And, you know, I I just don't think that should be the right way to go about things. I remember growing up in the East Coast where despite like some of the just uncomfortableness being a minority and hanging around white people, I think that sort of culture that East Coast white people have, where it's very like ranty, it's very complaint oriented, where you criticize things. The the act of criticizing people or roasting things or making really out of pocket comments, sometimes they can be racist. Obviously, they're problematic, but I just think of like Bill Burr or some of the older guys like George Carlin. Their humor is, or even like Conan, I think it was more West Coast, but that sort of humor is really tied into being more sarcastic, like not parodying, but um, I can't think of a word, but like being caustic, criticizing like the current state of society. And so you're in this really kind of a little bit of a negative mood, but you're finding humor and self deprecation in that sort of suffering or in sort of that like misery. And they sort of make it kind of funny, but not in a very overt way. I think that's the main thing that I liked about sort of the East Coast. They're not overtly trying to be super happy and super joyful. They're sort of trying to like get a get a response out of you, like sort of be provocative and trying to, in a sense, be a little intellectual in their humor. Not necessarily intellectual, like super smart or super whatever, but there's like a little bit of cleverness to them where they want to get you in a way. And it's really hard to sort of like tease people and get people when you're in like a really like upbeat, happy mood like this. And I think the sort of really observant and um, really criticizing way of humor, I actually think is a lot warmer and a lot more comfortable to be in than someone that is always upbeat and super happy. Because I think with the upbeatness and the basicness of which I call Asian Americans, it's like you don't have this opportunity to really think or really just be controversial. People like sort of, if you say something that's out of pocket, they'll be like, whoa, 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 like, hey, like that's not cool. Or they won't say like that's not cool, but they're like, yo, they're sort of like completely take the vibe out of something that, you want to be a little bit dark, a little morbid. And then they won't know how to react to that. So they just try to like, it's just like a uncomfortableness to it. And so like this overall environment to be more energetic, it sort of weighs down on your own creativity. And I feel like I've really experienced that living here. Obviously, you can tell me to move, and I have been thinking about it, but I feel like California is such a nice place and it's slow. it's warm. You don't have to be so busy all the time. Like, it doesn't have to be this sort of nature in which everyone is always so, rushing and um, always so upbeat and on to the next thing sort of attitude, or like super smiley, like super happy. I just don't think that's necessary. And I feel that sort of culture really weighs down on you. It really slowly destroys your soul, where you feel like you just can't be a normal person anymore. You have to become an entertainer. You have to become a clown. And everyone is sort of either someone who's like really cool or really pretty, sort of like a K-pop star, who like is super basic and is so bored by everything. Or you have to be like a super entertaining clown who's like making all these like jokes or not being serious and just simply just not stating their own opinion in an educated intellectual way. And it just feels like this is not like a way to be human, you know? It's turned living into something so pragmatic, so practical, that you're just not able to just enjoy being with someone and just be curious and just have a nice conversation with them and just learn more, you know? Like, I don't think you would find many Asian Americans in the West Coast that sort of talk like in this sort of manner. It's sort of slow, but it's more inquisitive. I think a lot of Asians are really ashamed of being like this. And I think being on the East Coast, where the humor is sort of like, it's very out of pocket. And, a lot of times you're just making fun of people, or you're making fun of racism in a sense. It's like, it feels like there's real undercurrents or undertones to the humor, as opposed to just like, yo, I did this crazy thing. I was like, yo, we're just like going wild. Like that's become West Coast. And I don't know, I've gotten really tired of it. And the sad thing is that the West Coast doesn't have to be like this. It doesn't have to be this sort of really wild spirit, carefree. There can be intellectuals or intellectualism, out in the Bay. But it's just not something that I think I really find here. And I think it's bothered me to a certain extent, where I just can't find just people to just talk to and shoot the shit with, and I don't know, just not have to be so upbeat all the time. Like, why? Why? Why do you feel like you always have to be so happy? Like, I'm smiling suddenly because I don't feel the pressure to do that anymore. It's like you get this sense of giddiness, like trying to think of something clever to like make fun of someone. And I sort of like that vibe, rather than, trying to be super upbeat or like super basic all the time. Like, I don't know, like chasing the next vacation or chasing the next thing. Like, can we just make fun of, certain things, like how you think you're a absolute hardo, yet you don't care about other things, or you say you're an introvert and you're a loser, but all of us are willing to talk, and like you're not making any effort either, so what the heck is your problem? Sort of like that. It's like calling people out, and I feel like that sort of personality is not really allowed here, and it's tough to sort of keep that, to keep what's true to me. Um, but yeah, maybe I'll go to the East Coast and see what's up, see if what I'm saying is true or not, whether I'm just completely talking out of my ass, but that's been my experience living here. And I wonder if people in the US, if they feel the same way, especially out on the West Coast. Just this anti-intellectualism that I find on the West Coast. So, yeah, those are my thoughts about California. It's super nice here. I'm tan. I'm enjoying the sunny weather. I couldn't complain less about it. But your personality doesn't have to be all sun either. There can be some moon to it. Like, it's okay. But yeah.